Welcome to Standing Up. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Facebook banning because they seem to have a very, and they'll never claim that this is their policy, but they seem to have a strict uh, policy against anti-government content. I believe it was around 2 years ago when they had that big purging of like 800 Facebook pages. Um, and I followed a lot of those pages. None of them were fake news pages like Facebook claimed. They were just anti-government pages. The only one that I think somehow survived, you're either founder or admin of, which is the Mind Unleashed. So it seems so I guess you guys, the Mind Unleashed page is very lucky that they didn't get purged because they definitely fall into the category like the other guys, anti-media and many of these other people that were just years of work, hundreds, thousands of hours of effort erased overnight under the pretense of fake news when it was just anti-government sentiment. So that once that happened, that's when I decided that Facebook is the second I find it an alternative, then I'm gonna move and I'm gonna promote it and try to you know, help
Yeah.
Facebook.
No, I'm glad you touched on that. Yeah, it was October 2018 as well. That's when, what we refer to as the purge happened. And
Right.
like you said, 500 plus pages deleted, the Anti-Media, the Free Thought Project, many others that had millions and millions of followers and were reaching millions and millions of people. At one point at our height, because I have written for most of these websites and collaborated with them in different ways. And so I've got to know some of the founders and, at some of the different points, the height of social media, when we were really able to reach people before this, fake news clampdown, we were reaching hundreds of millions of people a week through our articles, through our videos, through our memes and things like that, and really having an effect. And they have truly cut our legs out from under us, and they just wholesale deleted the Anti-Media, deleted the Free Thought Project, and plenty of other people labeled us fake news. They took away the ability for many of these websites to use Google ads and to use other ad sites, which is typically how people make money in order to pay writers and pay people like myself. I'm not the founder of the Mind Unleashed, but I am one of the writers, and I'm friends with all the people involved in there. And yeah, we're sort of like, how are we still around?
Right.
Is the question we ask. But I will say, just and just to your audience to kind of be aware, I don't I think our days are numbered just from being friends with everybody who runs the Mind Unleashed on the back end. I mean, we just this morning I got a message that we have 3 strikes from Facebook now because they're accusing us of fake news, for reporting about the coronavirus and about the simulation that was ran, 6 weeks before this
Wow.
coronavirus. And this is factual news. This is, we actually, but Facebook, because of the whole fake news thing, they have now these 6 or 7 fact checkers, and these fact checkers range from the Associated Press to other outlets. Like one is called the Leader News or something. These different outlets that we've never even heard of. We don't know who the people are. I've actually started to do some research and to dig into these people to find out, what sort of shady connections there might be, because these are supposed to be some impartial fact checkers, and basically they have the ability to flag you as fake news. Facebook strikes you, and then as a result of that, they can either delete your page or at the very least they can shadow ban you and make sure nobody's going to see any of your content. So we're at this point where internally we're having this discussion at the Mind Unleashed on how to handle this. There are some people, I'll say, on the team who really want to kind of, in my view, cower to them and say, okay, let's take that off. Let's not report on these things, or let's start, just posting the positive news. Because, the Mind Unleashed is kind of a mix of spiritual self-empowerment,
Right.
self-help type memes and articles, as well as we try to do real hard-hitting news as well, because most of the people involved in the Mind Unleashed are the people who were involved in the Anti-Media, were involved in Mint Press and other outlets that have now since suffered and basically can barely survive. And so we've all sort of centered around this last giant page we have on Facebook, which is the Mind Unleashed. We have 9 million followers, but we're not reaching, I'd say, 5% of that audience
Mhm.
because of Facebook algorithms. But it's a very real battle. And, I'm more of the argument that, hey, screw these people. We need to report real news and we need to just keep pushing it. But the reality is that they have the ability to delete us at their own whim, and at some point it will happen. And when that happens, I mean, we will lose a very valuable tool, and it will be very difficult for us to reach anybody after that, because this is the last big page that we have access to. Many of us have access to, and there's a few others big ones out there, but I don't think there's people who are trying to take their work as serious and credible. There's some big pages out there that they post things that I wouldn't say are as credible or factual, as our team really makes an effort to do real journalism. But we get flagged by these, Facebook fact checkers, and we really have no power over it, and this is why I personally am leaving Facebook again this week. I recently launched my Facebook page specifically for the mayoral campaign. After having left Facebook more than a year and a half, 2 years ago, I realized, like, hey, I can't run a campaign for office if I'm not on Facebook, and that's what I hate, is they've got us all sucked into these tools, and I can't run a business without a Facebook page. I can't run a campaign without a Facebook page. I can't, promote news without a Facebook
Right.
page. So people play the game, but as we can see, they're in complete control.
They are, and I'd say it's very demoralizing because for a little bit I was hopeful that we're breaking through and out of the grasp of the mainstream media, which is just corporate media that their model is very simple. Is it sensationalist, and is it in line with the corporate agenda? And that's really how their model goes. And when you need to follow those specific criteria, there's a lot of truth and important things that are being missed. I thought Facebook and social media in general was a great solution until the crackdown happened, and it's happening on YouTube as well. Uh, I'd say this for the audience, for the viewers and the listeners. First, check out the Mind Unleashed because they're a great page, but also follow them on Telegram. Join their Telegram channel because Telegram is harder to censor. Mainly because the founders just don't seem to give a shit. Like they're wanted by the Russian government. They're banned in Iran. They're just doing their own thing. So I'd say they don't plan on banning anybody. Uh, and in addition to that, I still remain hopeful because it seems like there might be some solutions involving blockchain technology. I keep hearing about new social media platforms. One of them is called Voice. It's going to be built on the EOS platform. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. I would, and I'm not going to say Voice is going to be the best one or the one. It's just one that I'm very familiar with, but I would say that there's many people working on alternative social media networks that are harder to censor. And so while the purge was very demoralizing and the censorship on Facebook and YouTube and Google is demoralizing, I do remain hopeful. Derek, are there any other platforms that you think are worth looking into or checking out?
So there are more than a handful that I use outside of Facebook and YouTube that I think are valuable for social media when it comes to video and posting and things of that sort. Minds.com is one that I use. I'm trying to get back to posting on there regularly because I do have somewhat of a following there. BitChute is a video platform alternative that for the most part doesn't censor people and mess with the algorithms. Then of course there's Steam It, which has been around for a few years. I still post my content on there because there's people who are on Steam It.
Mhm.
And then there's websites like D Live, which used to be a part of Steam It, which is kind of a live streaming website. It's become more for gamers, but anybody can use it to live stream on it. And again, it's blockchain based. It's censorship free. And I know some friends who use the float.app, flote.app website. I haven't gotten into that. I mean, the thing is, there are alternatives. I hadn't heard of this voice one, so I appreciate you mentioning that. Excuse me. But I guess the struggle that I see is that, we already have effective tools that do work better than Facebook. I mean, some of them are essentially just like Facebook. You got a wall, you can post things, you can add friends, you can do the groups and the pages and all that stuff, just like Minds is basically right there with it. But the problem is, the people that we want to reach, like the normies, they're all on Facebook, right? Just the way I see it is that the average person
Mhm.
they're gonna pay attention to the mainstream TV shows, the mainstream movies. They're gonna read the mainstream books. They're gonna just follow whatever the mainstream tells them, the mainstream trends, and that applies to social networks as well. Like most people, unfortunately. We have to educate them because they're just going to go with what's right in front of them. Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, that's what they know, that's what they hear about, that's what they're going to use. They don't even know that there's alternatives. But there's plenty of reasons besides the censorship, just not supporting these companies in general, Google and Facebook, that I think are legitimate reasons why we should be pursuing alternatives. So the alternatives are out there, and I'm sure there will be more like Voice and plenty of others that perfect it and get it really, nice and smooth, where it's easy for somebody who doesn't. Because the problem with some of the early ones, you had to know a little bit about blockchain and how to
Right.
function. Steemit is
Mhm.
still not very easy for somebody who doesn't want to remember a blockchain password and all this kind of stuff. So you have to make it where a grandma can sign on just like she can sign on Facebook and scroll through her family's pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how we do that, how we get people to start shifting away from those other platforms, but I guess it's just about education and also, like, like you mentioned, voice. When people make new platforms, it's us up to us, the content creators, to support them and to embrace them and to tell people about them. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there. They're going to, fall to the wayside, because if nobody's using them, they're not going to be able to support themselves.
Yep. I agree completely, and I think that one way to bring new users on is a lot of influencers are getting pretty fed up. I know YouTube is really they changed their algorithm, which is making a lot of independent news outlets get far less reach. So I think it's good that they're getting fed up because that means they're gonna eventually migrate to a different platform, and with them they can bring um, their users. But it's true that the user experience just isn't good enough yet. It's like we're in the mid '90s of the internet. It's not for the average Joe. I think we're still a few years out, but I think that the progress is happening fast. Um, Voice is being built. It's being released. Beta is being released at the end of February, and it's being released by Block One. They're the founders of the EOSIO software, and they raised $4.5 billion in a year-long crowd sale. So I imagine they have quite a large marketing budget, and I hope that marketing budget can be used to really help people migrate. And yeah, I'm hopeful. It's interesting to see what the future holds when it comes to social media platforms.